it's really, I've got a take on all these guys. I've got to. There's very. I don't think there's anybody. I mean, we have conversations. I make conversations with my editor Paul Kaminsky all the time. Like, there's nobody he can throw at me from DC history that I don't have some sort of elaborate take on, because I've been thinking about them all my life.
Hey everyone, welcome Mark Waid back to the Comics Cube. How are you today?
Doing good today, and you?
I'm doing good.
Great.
Before we start, I want to say one belated happy birthday.
Thank you.
And also, if you want to say a few words, and I understand if you wouldn't, but my massive condolences for Brian Augustyn.
Brian. Yeah. Brian Augustyn passed away of a sudden stroke. My best friend for, over 35 years. I've known Brian forever and talked to him all the time. And, in our days working on Flash, he was my editor on Flash and then later my co-writer. I mean, none of those stories happened without a conversation between the two of us, just knocking ideas back and forth. So, anything you like in the Flash mythos that's out of my run, whether it's Max Mercury or Impulse or the Speed Force or, what have you, that's, Brian's DNA is all in that. So he was really something. He gave me my career by handing me Flash. He gave Travis Charest a career. He gave, Derek Robertson. He gave Mike Parabeck a career. He gave Michael Ringo a career. I mean, his real specialty was finding young talent and seeing the diamonds in the rough.
Yeah.
So he will be missed. Thank you for your condolences.
Yeah, historically underrated, Brian Augustyn.
Yep.
So we're here to talk about World's Finest,
Yeah.
Superman, Batman, World's Finest. I said that in that order, and I will die on that hill.
Yeah, me too. I don't care what they say. All my scripts say Superman, Batman, World's Finest. So
I know your love for Superman is well documented, but let's say your love for Superman is on a scale of 100. Where,
right.
What number would your love for Batman be?
It's up there. It classic Batman, 85, 90. It's the darker and grittier he gets, and the more humorless and not that he should be Adam West, but I mean the more intense he gets, the more ruthless and so he loses some attraction to me. That is just me. That is not a criticism of people who enjoy that kind of Batman. It's just I kind of like a Batman who understands that from a tactical standpoint, if nothing else, there is no get in alienating other people, because they're all useful in terms of his war against crime. And, even beyond the fact that he's capable of making friends, even if you weren't, they'd still be useful in his war against crime, as opposed to, telling people to go away or not working with people or refusing to cooperate with, whoever. I don't care what his philosophy is versus Superman's philosophy. Batman's smart enough to know that having Superman as his friend and on his side makes his life better and makes Gotham a better place. So there you go.
I feel like that particular take on Batman is a lot of writers have taken that as an offshoot of the story that you did, Tower of Babel, which I feel like a lot of people have taken the wrong message from that book.
Yeah, I know, right? They read Power of Babel. They fail to read the next few issues follow up, which is the resolution being that Batman realized out of this that his crime in Tower of Babel was not assembling a list of contingencies against the Justice League. His sin was not telling them he was doing that. Because if you told Wonder Woman flat out, listen, just in case you go nuts someday, I've got a plan B, she would be fine with that. She would encourage that, because that makes sense. That's smart, and Batman can be trusted. But keeping it from him, that was the big thing. So, in the subsequent story arc, Batman comes back to the League because he admits that he sees where he's been wrong, and we were to go forward from there. But you're right. The lesson just seems to be, Batman's a megalomaniacal jerk. So
yeah. There is that direct to video adaptation of Tower of Babel, Justice League Doom, where he just goes full on jerk and he says, "Then you're a bunch of idiots for not making these plans instead of me."
Yeah,
I'm like, "Are you
that's
okay?"
bull. Yeah, that's bullshit. That's come on. And
Yeah.
who knows? I mean, he didn't know they didn't have plans.
So recently you did an AMA on Reddit. Do you have a particular quote that came out that made the rounds?
I know people can. Who people can't take a joke, and especially who can't take a joke. The Snyder Bros cannot take a joke. So, but go ahead.
Because I was reading that, and exactly so you said, I think my perception of Superman has changed in this way. I spent a lot of years believing that there was only one true Superman. I was pretty rigid in how he was interpreted. I've since come to accept that Superman belongs to everyone and he's flexible enough to withstand multiple interpretations, except ones where he snaps necks. And I read that and I was like, all right, that's a joke at the end right there.
Thank you. Most people did, unless you were onion-skinned Snyder Bros, who are busy either taking apart anything I could possibly say, or stuffing the ballot box at the Oscars for fan favorite moments. One of those two things that you're doing. It's amazing to me. It's amazing to me that it was pretty clear. And I said that tongue in cheek. I mean, should I put a goddamn emoticon after it? Probably. Here's your smile emoji. But I figure people are smart enough to where I don't have to use that kind of stuff. Anyway, I mean, the spirit of it is still true. I still think Superman neck snapping is bad and out of character, no matter what the reality is. But that's just me. I'm not. I'm past making any sort of official pronouncement saying this must never be, and no one, everybody who thinks this is wrong. It's more. I've kind of had to resign myself to the idea of, all right, I seriously think it's the wrong approach, but there's people get to worship at the church of their choice.
Yeah. I know when people bring that up, they bring up Superman 2 and how he depowers the Phantom Zoners and then throws them into. But to me, even as a kid, it always just looked like, okay, they fell in the snow.
Yeah, it's a cartoon. That's the difference.
Yeah.
Superman 2 is a cartoon compared to, Man of Steel. There's no question about it. I mean, ripping the cellophane off the chest and all the, and the kiss that takes memories away. And I mean, it's great and it's fun and it's a wonderful movie, but it's a cartoon.
Yeah.
So what happens in the end to the criminals of Krypton is, it's a cartoon. And in that spirit, I mean, like it never once occurred to me, oh my God, they've fallen to their deaths. It more occurred to me like, oh, well, now they're being held under the fortress of solitude somewhere. That's all.
Yeah. Do you think, with different takes on Superman and Batman over the many decades, how do you navigate these, especially when you're writing a book like World's Finest, or if you're doing something like let's say, moving forward, how do you navigate all of these different takes? And
the good news is there's so many that if you pick and choose, it's not gonna stand out from the crowd, in the sense that you're not gonna look like it's not gonna be too weird because there's already so many takes on their relationship. I know how I interpret these characters and I know my take on them, and so I just run with that and try not to question it too bad.
Is there anything from editorial that says you got to go in a certain direction?
No, they've been terrific. DC has been great about the whole process and letting me go places where I was not sure I wanted to, where I was not sure I was allowed to go plenty of times. I mean, no one said no to me yet. There'll be a chance at some point, but Doom Patrol, great. Whatever. I mean, it's a Red Kryptonite, great. Everybody knows I'm having fun, and my job is to have fun and help you have fun with this book, and nobody's standing in my way. And man, is Dan Mora an amazing artist on this book? Man, is he bringing the heat? It really looks and feels like a very modern comic book, which is again the goal, right? It's not to be. I don't want to look like it's Silver Age karaoke.
Yeah, you're not putting Band-Aid dots on it or anything.
No, it's not, and it's not. And it is not. just because it is sort of classic versions of these characters doesn't mean the stories are I'm telling the stories any different than I would if they were taking place in the here and now. They're still the same way I would approach the stories. They're still very modern, so and timeless, I think, in this case. So, but Dan Moore is great. Tamara Von Villen, who is doing the coloring, she's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, I've got to, they make me look good.
Because your love for Batman is a little less than your love for Superman, do you feel that you have to build up Batman a little bit more, like when you're writing these things?
Actually, what's funny is, no, I have to worry about Superman more, because the problem solving of as they go about their missions, you tend to default to Batman because that's his thing, right? But I don't want to make Superman just a big dopey guy who can move things around. So as each, I made a point certainly in the first 5 issues and going forward, but certainly in the first 5, with every problem that they encounter as they go, I'm making a conscious choice to have them trade off in terms of, oh, you know what, I think it's Superman's time to say, hey, you know what we should do here, as opposed to Batman's, and the next time it'll be Batman's. And it just balances the team more. But in that sense, it's hard. The real balance is coming up with things that Batman and Superman can both fight at the same time. Mm-hmm. That's a tricky thing. And as I say, so for that you kind of lean towards Superman, because he's the one you're really going to worry about in that fight. On the other hand, the deduction, the detective work, all that stuff, you tend to default to Batman. But guy's got super hearing and supervision, and he's really smart. So there's a joke, I think, in issue 3 where Superman says, that's the detective work, that's the stuff you enjoy. So
is it possible he's just humoring him?
No. There's the trick is, and it's the very first line, I think. No, it was certainly the very first panel of the first issue. And it cuts to the heart of what I think one of the differences between Batman and Superman is Batman says flat out, you're incapable of thinking like a criminal.
Yeah.
To Superman. And he is. He's incapable of, he just doesn't, Batman understands the Joker, Bane, Ra's al Ghul, in a way that Superman, for all his intelligence, cannot. It's Superman versus the Joker should be a much more Superman. I think Superman would have a harder time with Joker than he would with Brainiac or Luthor.
Yes.
If given the right Joker story and given the right circumstances, because Superman is just, he's not wired to think that way, and Batman is wired to think that way.
Superman still lives in a world where he believes that one day he and Lex can be friends, right?
Exactly.
Okay. One of the things that I really like about World's Finest, so as you keep going, is the use of the DC universe. You mentioned the Doom Patrol. I know you have of course you have a huge love for the DC universe. You used to write Brave and the Bold. But why default to the Doom Patrol? Because I love the way you wrote them back then as well in Brave and the Bold. So why the Doom Patrol? Please explain.
Because we've never seen them with Superman and Batman. We've seen one Superman Doom Patrol team up, but it was the like 1980s team with Celsius and Tempest and those guys. We've never seen Batman and the Doom Patrol in a panel together, as near as I can tell, except that the Doom Patrol's wedding in one panel in 1965 or whatever. We've never seen Superman and the Doom Patrol. That was the attraction. Like, going through the DC universe, one of the things I did to prepare for the book was go through the DC universe, not only classic, but modern as well, and just make a list of the things and the places and the people that Batman and Superman have not, to the best of my knowledge, ever encountered, even though they're in parts of the DC universe. And it's a longer list than you think. And that goes for the Superman and Batman families too. I mean, one of the things I enjoyed the most about the second issue is putting Supergirl and Robin together for a mission, because it occurred to me I think I'm right on this. I mean, I may have overlooked something in the last few years, but I cannot think of a single time that I've ever seen in 80 years Nightwing or Dick Grayson or Robin, Dick in any of his incarnations, and Supergirl together on a mission or even having a conversation. I think the most we've seen is the two of them together in one panel, in the background of something. So I think that that's way overdue. And that was so much fun. Again, so giving you combinations that you've not seen before, giving you, points of view on characters that you've never seen before. That's part of the goal.
That's true. And
Yeah.
yet they're both with Barbara all the time.
Yep, exactly. Exactly. It astounded me that I have never. I realized I look back and I think I've never seen them have a conversation.
How much fun was it to go back through all of those old comics to prepare for
It
this
was
book?
great. It was great. And again, again, not to get me wrong, there's plenty of modern. I didn't stop at 1967. There's plenty of. I went through all of DC history from 1938 to last week, plumbing and looking for things to work with. And it was a blast. I mean, most of that stuff lives up here anyway, but still just flipping through old who's or every once in a while and going, oh yeah, Terra Man. There's some take on Terra Man I haven't had before, or oh, Man Bat and Bizarro. That would be a really good team up against Superman and Batman.
Do you find, because of your love for Superman, do you find it's harder or easier to write him than it would be for, than other characters that you've written in the past, like the Flash or Daredevil? Or
It's easy as can be. I mean, it really is easy. I Flash would be the closest to how easy it is to write a character. Those two are just become natural in me. Everybody else is a little bit of work. Not hard. I mean, I tend to gravitate toward the characters that I know really well anyway. I don't do a whole lot of work with, characters that have been around for 5 or 10 years, the last 5 or 10 years, only because I don't know them as well. I didn't live with them as a kid. I didn't think about them as a teenager. I didn't think about them as a young adult. So it's really, I've got to take on all these guys, I don't think there's anybody. I mean, we have conversations. I make conversations with my editor, Paul Kaminsky, all the time. Like, there's nobody he can throw at me from DC history that I don't have some sort of elaborate take on, because I've been thinking about them all my life.
perfect. Speaking of that, one other thing that happens, slight spoiler to anyone who hasn't read it, is that Lois Lane shows up in the middle of the battle, and within half a sentence of Robin explaining to her what's going on, she knows exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
Which is, I think a lot of people, when they're writing Batman or when reading Batman work, we kind of expect everyone to kind of be dumbed down a little bit, but you don't do that especially with Lois.
Especially with Lois. I mean, I think that as we go forward past issue 5, which is the first, the end of the first arc, as we go forward, the plan is I don't have to have it be Batman and Superman in every issue. It can, but I do want those worlds together. There's a Jimmy Olsen Lois, there's a Jimmy Olsen Robin story to be told. There's a Commissioner Gordon Perry White story to be told somewhere. There's the fun of it is not just putting Superman and Batman together; it's putting their worlds together. And in doing so, like you said, everybody can be a star. It just depends on how the spotlight falls on them. So yeah, they're not. I see what you're saying. Yeah, but just because Superman and Batman are the stars of the book doesn't mean everybody else has to be subservient.
Is it possible there's a Crypto and an Ace story somewhere in there?
Somewhere, probably. I never really warmed to Ace as much as I did to Crypto, but I'm sure there's somewhere in there. There's a story to be told.
How does Jimmy Olsen work in today's day and age? Because the classic aesthetics of Jimmy Olsen, they're a little frozen in time.
Yeah.
But so yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he works because he works on 2 levels. First off, people forget he was created not to be Superman's pal. He was created to be Clark Kent's pal. He was created to be, Clark Kent's foil on the radio. And then became Superman's pal gradually as Superman sort of embraced in the radio show, sort of embraced being more public and so forth. But to me, he's friends with both. He doesn't know the secret, and he grounds Superman. I mean, Jimmy's one of the few people in the world he can just sit down with and talk about the day. Because there's something about Jimmy that is is respectful but not hero worshipful. You know, there's a world in which Jimmy Olsen can tease Superman in a way that, you know, most people would be afraid to. I think that's it. And I think that the other thing that makes that relationship work, and this is should tip Jimmy off about the secret, but he's not quite that bright. I make a point. Clark and Superman are the only two characters who call him Jim and not Jimmy, because they treat him like a grown-up. And that is the appeal for Jimmy to both those gentlemen.
And he doesn't figure it out.
No. But you know, again, you take that. If you believe in glasses can disguise somebody, you got to lean into the rest.
With in this book, Lois Lane still doesn't know that Clark Kent is Superman. So
Right.
here's my question about that. Being a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist, does Lois actually know?
No. And I'll tell you why. There's two things. First off, he's really good at hiding that secret. As you know, and you saw this, you know, again, we refer to Superman the movie all the time, the scene where he almost reveals himself to Lois. You can see, holy smokes, you can kind of see how you would not necessarily put the two of them together. Also, I will say this, as somebody who majored in journalism, as somebody who wanted to be a reporter, as someone who has spent a lot of time with reporters and news people, I will tell you this, with all due respect to all of them, they are always looking at the outside picture, and the stuff close to their nose, they miss all the time.
Have you ever heard of the story of Marilyn Monroe walking around New York with her photographer's
Yes.
wife? Yeah.
Yeah. And then the moment she says, okay, I'm going to put on the Marilyn suit, quote unquote. Yeah. Suddenly people are swarming up to her.
That's insane. And yet it's completely believable.
And I did my best in Birthright to help bolster that. You know, I mean, I did this thing that I was really proud of, where Superman's eyes are such an intense blue, such a, like the kind of eyes that you would never forget if you ever looked into those eyes. So if the glasses actually cut, like they're built to cut the color a little bit. They're built to refract the color a little bit. So Clark Kent's eyes and Superman's eyes are still blue, but they don't look, Clark's eyes don't look striking like Superman's do. It's a little things like that. His acting, his posture, his clothing, you know, all that stuff helps contribute to the disguise. At the end of the day, would it really work in the real world? Probably not. But you know what? Nobody flies in the real world either. So just suck it up and lean into it.
I feel like we don't talk about Birthright enough, but it is the work that you're most proud of, correct?
Yeah.
Do you want to say a few words about it and working with Laney Liu? And
Sure. I mean, it's my love letter to Superman. It is, you know, basically the task given to me by editorial was, please update Superman's origin for the 21st century. And so that forced me to really look hard at Superman and the world around him in a way I hadn't before, in a way in which having to really approach him like a new audience would, and realize that Superman comes from an era where white picket fences were, you know, a thing to strive for, you know, and not realize that white picket fences hide some terrible secrets in suburbia, you know, in a world in which heroism meant one thing, whereas in a later generation, you know, heroism, you know, FDR, or not FDR, but JFK, Gandhi, you know, Lincoln, all, you know, the price for being a good guy is you get a bullet in the head. That's what, you know, you would think if you were raised in the 21st century. So bearing all that in mind, how do you work in a post 9/11? How does a superhero work in a post 9/11 world? All of these things were things I had to approach with a different point of view, and really had to ask myself fundamental questions about everything about Superman. Why does he wear a costume? Why does he do good things as opposed to just be selfish? Why all of these things? And I think Birthright answered those questions, at least to my satisfaction. Whether or not it's to everybody's satisfaction, I don't know, but to my satisfaction.
that's funny, because it's funny that you mentioned a post 9/11 world, because, you know, Superman's biggest superpower is compassion, a thing that the entirety of humanity is supposed to be capable of. And my question is, Mr. Mark Waid, has
Yeah.
your opinion of that changed at all in the last 2 years?
Of his,
No, of the capability of human compassion, and
oh
therefore,
yes, oh,
yeah.
it's changed radically in the last 5 years. It is increasingly harder with every passing day to be forgiving of mankind and to think that we are better and to think that we are capable of better, because it's everything has conspired to let out all the darkness in us, and it has run rampant. And I don't know, how do you put that genie back in the bottle? I really don't. We are such a divided society, we're such a polarized society, we're such an angry society. I don't know how to fix that. And so it's tough to write characters whose job it is to remind us that we are, this is the things we really stand for, because it's not what a lot of people stand for these days. I don't know. All I can do is just put my head down and go, okay, this is how Superman sees the world. And if that means he's in step, that's great. If it means he's out of step, well, then the world should bend to meet him rather than vice versa.
I've got just a couple of last questions. I'm mindful of the
Yeah.
time. So with Batman being a detective, and I know you love whodunit mysteries as well, is it harder to do whodunits in comics?
Well, it's harder to do a whodunit with Superman, who has X-ray vision and super hearing. Yes. And in fact, issue 6 is a standalone murder mystery. So with focusing on Robin, but also Batman and Superman. And so that was a lot of bending over backwards to figure out reasons why Superman can't just solve the mystery with a glance of his X-ray vision. But yeah, it can be done. It just was a long week of writing.
With Lois Lane, being Superman's wife in current continuity, and obviously her place in pop culture.
Yeah.
Is there a place still for Lana Lang?
That's a good question. I will say this. I think the Superman and Lois show has done a great job of figuring out what to do with Lois, or with Lana, rather, what to do with Lana. Making her the mayor of Smallville was really smart thinking. I think there's still room for Lana somewhere, as long as it's not a rivalry, it's not a romantic rivalry. This is the woman who I thought I loved when I was a teenager and thought she loved me, and we probably did, but we've grown on and become different people, and now we're best friends. And I think there's room for that. Yeah.
And what else can we expect from World's Finest? You can tell us.
I know. What can I tell you? I know that there is. So what can I tell you without review? That's the thing. Everything is a surprise. I'm trying to figure out how not to spoil anything, other than you will see more combinations of characters. Like I said, you will see a Jimmy Robin story at some point. You will see, a Lois Lane, Vicky Vale story at some point. Maybe not a whole story, but you will see those kind of threads together. I do love mashing up the universes. I do have another whodunit figured out that I can throw in at some point when we need to fill an artist.
I don't even think I've heard Vicky Vale in years.
I know. That was me just off the top of my head just then. So that is not planned. That was just off the top of my head, because I was trying to think, okay, who's the Lois Lane analog, or probably Renee Montoya Lois Lane actually makes more sense, doesn't it? There's a way to make that work. Anyway, and also characters, like I said, if you want to get a sense of who's going to show up in the book, start looking for characters that they've never met before, or look for characters in interesting combinations. I'm going to find a way to do Bizarro and Man-Bat together some way or another.
Yeah. I mean, in the first issue, you had Penguin and the antimatter
Quard, exactly.
The Thunderers of Quard. Yeah.
Like I said, that comes from the giant list I made of, okay, who have I not seen Batman fight? Who have I not seen Superman fight? Never seen him fight the Weaponers of Quard. Put him in the book.
One last question. What is if let's say here is your depiction of Superman in the World's Finest, where in this spectrum will be your depiction of Superman in the Black Label book with Brian Hitch?
Same spirit. Black Label book is very much a Birthright sequel.
Okay.
So earlier in his career, I guess, but definitely a Birthright sequel. We haven't really promoted it as that, but we haven't really promoted it at all yet because we haven't really officially announced it yet, except Brian did, and so now the whole world knows anyway. Yeah.
Well, it's good because everyone is anticipating that. Thank you so much, Mark Waid.
You bet. I wish I had more time, but we'll get together again in a few months. Okay.
No worries. Thank you so much.